for another deep dive.
Great to be here.
This one is it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, this is a tough one for sure.
So today we are going to be looking into the conservatorship of Wendy Williams.
Yes, the former talk show host.
And this is something that we've seen a lot about in the news recently.
Yeah, a lot of media coverage.
Especially with the whole Britney Spears situation.
Right, that really brought conservatorships into the public eye.
And it makes you think, how often does this happen?
Yeah, how many people are out there who are maybe in a similar situation, but they don't have that same platform?
Exactly. And, Wendy Williams, she's been very vocal about her experience.
Yes, she's been speaking out.
And it's concerning to say the least.
Definitely. It raises a lot of questions about the system itself.
Right. So we're going to be looking into all of that.
We've got court documents,
interview,
little analogies,
and even like public outcry.
Hashtag.
Yeah, the whole hashtag Free Wendy movement.
A lot to unpack.
It is. So I guess let's start with the basics.
Yeah, where do we even begin with all of this?
Well, I think we have to start with Wendy's own account.
Her own words.
She's given some pretty striking descriptions of what she's going through.
Yes, her experience in this wellness facility in New York.
It's pretty disturbing.
Very concerning.
I mean, she straight up called it prison in that interview on The Breakfast Club.
Right. That's a powerful statement.
She talked about restricted communication.
Limited mobility.
A regimented medication schedule.
It sounds very controlled.
Yeah, and, she claims she can't even choose her own food.
Or see her friends.
Or have any say in her medical care.
And she feels isolated.
Surrounded by much older residents.
It paints a pretty bleak picture.
It does. And then there's the medication.
Right. She talked about that too.
She said she doesn't Even know what she's taking or why.
She's not fully informed.
That's a huge red flag, right?
Absolutely. Informed consent is so important.
Especially with medical treatment.
It's a fundamental.
Right.
And this isn't just about some celebrity wanting special treatment.
Right. This goes beyond that. It's about basic human rights.
Dignity.
Economy.
The way to make decisions about your own life.
And I think that's where this whole conservatorship thing gets really tricky.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, because it is supposed to be about protection.
Protecting people who are vulnerable.
But when does that protection turn into control?
That's the key question.
So for our listeners who might not be familiar with all of this.
Yeah, let's break it down a bit.
What exactly is a conservatorship?
Essentially, it's a legal arrangement where a court appoints someone to manage the affairs of an individual.
So like their finances.
Exactly, their health care.
Living arrangements.
All of it.
And when does this typically happen?
Well, it's implemented when there's evidence that someone can't make sound decisions for themselves.
Due to what?
Cognitive impairment.
Okay.
Mental illness.
Or other factors that might put their well-being at risk.
Exactly.
So in Wendy's case, the court declared her legally incapacitated.
Due to a diagnosis of frontotemporal dementia.
Right, FTD.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Because she vehemently denies having any cognitive impairment.
She says she's fine.
And her niece has even said that she hasn't had a recent medical evaluation.
To back up that diagnosis.
So hold on. The court made this decision based on potentially outdated information.
That's what they're claiming.
That seems, I don't know, kind of shaky.
It raises concerns.
So we've got Wendy saying one thing.
The court saying another.
And a medical diagnosis that's potentially incorrect.
But we also have to consider that Wendy also had a problem in the past with drugs. And when her show ended, she was wandering around in the street.
Okay, yeah, that's a really important thing to bring up.
Definitely. It's crucial to consider her history.
You're right. It's not like this situation popped up out of nowhere.
There's definitely a background that we need to acknowledge.
And yeah, there were reports of substance abuse and erratic behavior.
Specifically around the time her show ended.
She was seen in public in ways that were concerning to many.
And that might be influencing the court's decision.
It's possible they're looking at all of this as part of a larger picture.
A history of behavior that seemed to be putting her at risk.
So it's not just about the current diagnosis of dementia.
Right, it's more than that.
It's also about a longer-term pattern of instability.
But it still raises the question if past behavior is enough.
Yeah, if this warrants taking away her autonomy now.
It's a very fine line.
And if there's a history of maybe poor decisions, that also doesn't necessarily mean she isn't capable now.
Exactly. That's an important nuance to consider.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's continue with the plan.
Right, let's get back into it.
It is, and then you add in the fact that she wants to leave this facility.
She wants to move to Miami.
To be closer to her family.
Especially her aging father.
She talked about that in her interview, too.
It's heartbreaking.
She's worried she won't see him for his birthday.
But the court might not allow her to leave.
They might say it's not in her best interest.
This is where that tension between freedom and protection comes in.
It's a tough situation for sure.
And then there's the whole hashtag Free Wendy movement.
Right. People are speaking out.
Her niece is urging people to support petitions.
Campaigns to raise awareness.
It's interesting to see how public opinion plays into all of this.
It makes you think, should public pressure influence legal decisions?
It's a tricky question.
Yeah, on one hand, you don't want a system where the loudest voices always win.
Regardless of the facts.
But Wendy Williams has dementia, then to be in a locked up facility will ensure that she doesn't wander away.
Okay, yeah, that's a really important point you're bringing up.
It's true. We can't just dismiss the possibility of dementia affecting her situation.
It's not just about her past behavior. We've talked about that.
Right, her substance abuse and the other concerning incidents, we touched on those.
But we have to think, if the dementia is a factor, then yeah, that facility might seem necessary.
It could explain why the court is acting with such caution.
This isn't necessarily a case of malice. It could be a misguided effort to help her.
Yeah, they might think it's the safest option to keep her in a controlled environment.
We're not saying it's the right option, but we understand the thought process.
It does highlight how complex these cases can be.
There are so many things the court needs to take into account.
Yeah, and it's not just about making a decision based on one single factor.
Right, it's about a whole picture, including her medical condition.
So if we consider that, then it makes more sense why she might be in a place with locked doors.
A place where they are keeping a close eye on her medication and so on.
It's not necessarily a luxury prison, as her niece said, but a place of safety.
At least that is what they would want us to think.
And so this raises an important question. What if that facility is not the right place for her?
And if there's a better way to support her while also respecting her wishes.
Yeah, and all of this makes us realize that the system is complex and flawed.
There has to be more consideration of the person's individual needs.
And the possibility of more alternatives that would empower her.
Which leads us back to where we left off, the hashtag Free Wendy movement.
And people protesting on her behalf.
Which is another layer of complexity to explore. And what if public pressure has a say?
So we are going to talk more about that next.
Exactly. So let's unpack that.
All right. So let's continue.
Sounds good. This is just a lot to consider.
Yeah, this is all so complicated. It's kind of wild.
Yes. And it brings up so many questions about individual rights and protection.
Definitely. It's a topic that we could talk about for days.
Maybe we will another time.
For now, though, that's all for this deep dive.
Thanks for joining us and for your insightful questions.
Yeah, we appreciate you chiming in.